So, Scott Adams has been canceled. Dilbert's been taken out of most newspapers. Scott's lost most of his income, probably. And, I'm not going to go into the details of what he said and what he actually meant and all that. For those who are curious, they can go to, Hotep Jesus's channel and listen to his interview there. It's fairly well explained. All you really need to know about that, I think, and this is what I really want to talk about more than Scott Adams specifically, is that Scott Adams has wanted to be canceled for the better part of 2 years now. And when it first was released by Elon Musk that Twitter had a list of particular names that had been throttled. I don't think that list ever got released in public, but such a list exists. Scott Adams' first reaction was, am I on that list? Not out of indignation and outrage that he might have been censored, but out of envy. He says, am I one of the cool people who was important enough to have been throttled by our own state? It's an envy. And I don't think Scott is even remotely alone in this feeling. I think we're coming to a place where the number of people who have been canceled, hard canceled or soft canceled, has grown to the point where it will include a lot of big name people. Now, I think the person who really began this, well, the OG is of course Alex Jones and Tommy Robinson, but the one who really tipped the scale, I think, in this phenomenon, this psychology of cancellation, was Jordan Peterson. Such an eminently, interesting and certainly not by all means correct, or even worth following in some cases, but certainly a decent person, who got canceled as a Nazi and as all these other things. It gives him a kind of mystique, a kind of sense of, wow, this is a very important person. And I think we are reaching a place where being canceled is actually a sign of social status and of fame. You cannot be canceled without being kind of famous. Now, obviously, there's lots of anons who get banned from certain channels. That's not really what we're talking about here. But if you are named, as I am, for example, on the SPLC's website or something like that, over whatever nonsense, because I was once seen in the company of someone else who was seen in the company of someone else, and too many handshakes, and there's a bad person on the other side, and you are therefore a bad person too. Like that is approaching a point where you were one of the people who demonstrated courage during that one time. That one time being the last 2 years, but really the last 5 years. Really, ever since the beginning of the Trump campaign, when censorship ratcheted up and the totalism of our state's authoritarian tendencies really reared its head. Only the people who got canceled, and this includes some Democrats, by the way, the Tulsi Gabbard types, only they demonstrated courage in the face of that. And so people like Scott Adams, and not just Scott Adams, but who either on their own value courage and aspire to be courageous and virtuous people, or have so much money that they don't really need anymore, so they're like, I may as well work on being a good person and doing good, which is, I think, where Scott Adams is at. Being canceled is the ultimate sign of being free, and there's a reason why that's exactly what Scott Adams is reframing his cancellation as. It's like, he says, the price of free speech was high, so I decided to pay it because no one else is willing to pay it. Well, other people are willing to pay it. It's a clever reframe, but it's also not wrong. He's not the only one who has paid that price, but he is now among the more prominent examples of people who have paid that price, and in doing so, made being cancellation even cooler than it already is. Now, actually, that's not true. He's not causing that. He's riding the wave. He's surfing the wave of coolness with cancellation that's already happening. And I expect in the coming years and decades, back in the day, Cicero in Roman courts would, on one or two occasions, ripped the cloak off of one of his patrons that he was defending in court, showing the battle scars of this good patriot who'd sacrificed so much for his country as a rhetorical tool. And it worked very well. It demonstrated the virtue of his patron. And I think we'll be seeing that with cancellation in the days to come too. You won't be a courageous person who will have been worth listening to unless you are canceled to some degree by the state or by our tech overlords that we all kind of collectively despise. So I think that's the meta take with what's going on with Scott Adams. Yes, that we can go into exactly what was said and so forth, but all you really need to know is that he has wanted to be canceled for the better part of 2 years and has said so on his channel repeatedly. And I think we'll be seeing a lot more of that in the coming years.